Over the last century, humanity has mastered the physical world. We have mapped the human genome, eradicated polio, and engineered suspension bridges capable of withstanding massive earthquakes. In the hard sciences, progress is cumulative. Methods are tested, refined, and built upon. You would expect that same trajectory in personal finance. Elite institutions fill these Gothic halls and high-rise offices with the sharpest mathematical minds available, specifically to solve the puzzles of the market. Yet, despite all that brainpower, financial catastrophes continue to follow the same patterns. The panic etched onto the faces of crowds outside banks during the 1929 stock market crash looks remarkably similar to what we see in modern recessions. 8 decades later, the exact same behavior resurfaced. The 2008 crisis erased trillions of dollars in wealth, driven by the identical cycle of high leverage, followed by sudden, overwhelming fear. While we have learned to build more resilient structures and more effective medicines, we haven't found a way to engineer the risk out of our own behavior. We treat finance like a hard science with fixed rules, but the results suggest we are playing a much more emotional game. Consider the contrast between Richard Foscone and Ronald Read. Foscone was a Harvard-educated finance executive who retired early to a multi-million-dollar estate, only to go broke and declare bankruptcy. Read was a gas station attendant and janitor who quietly amassed an $8 million fortune by the time he passed away. A janitor does not out-earn a highly trained executive through superior economic theories. He succeeds because doing well with money is less about what you know and more about how you behave. Most financial education ignores this. We train people using formulas and expected returns, assuming cold logic will dictate their choices. But a spreadsheet cannot factor in the visceral reaction of watching a retirement account drop 30%. When ego or panic take over, the most sophisticated mathematical models become irrelevant. Every individual navigates the economy using a map forged by their own history. Your worldview is shaped almost entirely by the specific inflation rate, job market, and economic climate you happen to be born into. A person who watched their parents lose their home during the Great Depression will view a market dip with a level of caution a tech worker from the 1990s cannot fathom. Their definitions of risk are built from 2 different realities. Your personal experiences make up a microscopic fraction of what has actually happened. Yet that tiny sliver forms the majority of how you think the world works. Inside their own context, taking the information they have, people's actions follow a clear internal logic. We tend to judge others' financial choices as mistakes of intelligence. In reality, they are usually just individuals acting out their own subjective history. The standard advice is to strip emotion from your decisions, but attempting to be coldly rational is often unsustainable. You have a better chance of success if you aim to be consistently reasonable instead. This means acknowledging that markets are not calculators. They are more like Benjamin Graham's Mr. Market, a manic-depressive business partner who shows up every day to offer you a price. Mr. Market's mood swings are arbitrary. One day he is euphoric, seeing only gains. The next he is terrified and sees nothing but ruin. To survive those swings, you need a margin of safety. This is the psychological buffer that allows you to endure the moments when your investments perform poorly without being forced to sell. Long-term survival isn't about finding the smartest formula. It is about having a strategy that is reasonable enough to keep you in the game when everyone else is losing their heads. Society often misjudges financial success because we rely exclusively on outward signals. We see what people spend, not what they have. This is the man in the car paradox. If you see someone driving a $300,000 Ferrari, the only thing you know for certain is that they have $300,000 less than they did before they bought it. High-profile bankruptcies illustrate the danger of confusing spending with wealth. Many stars end up broke because having things is not the same as having money. Wealth is the money not spent. It is the invisible assets, the cars and watches you chose not to purchase so that you could keep the capital instead. Building actual wealth has very little to do with increasing your income, and almost everything to do with managing your ego. If the goal of money isn't just to signal status to others, we have to look at what it actually provides. The highest dividend money pays is the ability to choose how you spend your time. Wealth, the unspent assets you keep, serves as a buffer. It is the difference between being forced to work a job you dislike and having the flexibility to wait for a better opportunity. When you have savings that aren't earmarked for a specific purchase, you have the freedom to dictate your own schedule. True financial freedom isn't found in a spreadsheet or a faster car. It is achieved by mastering your own psychology and prioritizing independence over appearance.